Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore, and we have come to the end of our NFL preview podcasts and the beginning of our NFL picks podcast. And that only means one thing. That means Jimmy Champ has joined us on this Sunday evening to break it all down, find you the winning bets. Jimmy, thank you for joining us tonight.
No place I would rather be than talk about how the Lions are not the best team in this division.
The Lions, as Jimmy mentioned, are the favorites in the NFC North. But before we get to our season preview of the NFC North, let's talk about the opening game of the NFL season. The Detroit Lions find themselves as 6.5-point underdogs to the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. The over-under for this game sits at 54.5, minus 105 on the over, minus 108 on the under. The money line is plus 250 for Detroit, minus 275 for Kansas City. Jimmy, a lot of hype on the Lions. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming off a Super Bowl win. What the hell is going to happen on opening night?
The Chiefs are going to beat the Lions skull win. That's what's going to happen. the Chiefs are going to win this football game by 3 scores. That's
wow.
What's going to happen.
An early season blowout.
Yes. The Lions should not be playing in this game. I'm glad they are because I'll happily make money on the Lions losing week 1. Like they're going to lose every time they play a better team with a better roster and a better coach. The trickeration shit isn't going to work against Andy Reid to start the season. The Lions will lose this football game.
I don't agree with you that it's going to be a total blowout, but I do agree with you that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game by a touchdown or more. Look it up. Jared Goff in the Dome is a pretty good to very good quarterback. When he is outdoors, those numbers aren't nearly as good. He looks like the Jared Goff that a lot of us think Jared Goff usually is. This is not a good spot for them. Jared Goff doesn't tend to play well under pressure. Kansas City is going to be a fucking madhouse. They feel like they're a dynasty in waiting. It doesn't look like Chris Jones is going to play. This is Sunday night. I can't imagine he'll just work all this out and be ready for week 1. So I guess that clock starts ticking. But I like Kansas City in this game. I don't think they get to 54. That seems like a lot of points.
I think they get to 54.
You think it's going to be a blowout. So if Kansas City puts up 35, I mean, 35 to 20 would be a convincing win.
I think the Lions will score points in the fourth quarter. I think this will get to 54.
Oh, that's a good point. And we'll have to keep an eye on that because if that does happen and Detroit does put some fourth quarter points up in, that semi-garbage time, that's something to remember thinking forward when they play another good team. Maybe they can sneak a backdoor cover.
Yep.
Both of us think they start the season 0-1, but the Detroit Lions are the favorites in this division. So let's break it down. To win the Super Bowl, they're plus 2,500. To win the conference, plus 1,100. Plus 145 to win the division. To make the playoffs, yes is minus 159. No is plus 145. Their over-under sits at 9.5. Minus 118 on the over, plus 110 on the under. Jimmy, we're talking about the Detroit Lions as the favorites in a division. I can't believe I'm saying those words. Do the Detroit Lions win more or fewer than 9.5 games?
I think they're 7 to 8 win team, so I'm taking the under here. I don't get it. I can't believe so many people are sold on this team. What they did last year was really impressive, but they won a lot of weird games in a lot of weird ways that doesn't tend to carry over. I feel like this is a team that regresses back to the mean. Amon-Ra St. Brown is really good, but he's the only skill player they have I trust. I have no love for Jared Goff or David Montgomery. I do think they have some really good defensive players like Hutchinson and Gardner Johnson, but they're not going to surprise anybody this year. I think all the little things, teams are going to be ready for it, and the biting kneecaps trope is only going to play so long when you're losing to better teams and better coaches. Like I think this was a one-year thing. I think they're the second or third best team in this division.
I'm torn. I think they're a 9 or 10 win team, and it's not because I don't think they're particularly good, but the NFC South feels like 3-1, and the AFC West feels like probably 2-2. I just think that team plays hard. I don't like Jared Goff that much, but enough of those games are going to be on turf that he'll be able to do enough to get the ball to those weapons. I think they get one more year out of this, biting ankles, give them hell attitude. So I'm actually going to take the over. I don't love it, but splitting with Minnesota, going 3-1 against Green Bay and Chicago, 3-1 in the NFC South, 2-2 in the AFC West, and then you have your three common record opponents. All they got to do is win one of those three, and that should be doable to get them to 10. So I'm taking the over. I don't like it because I like Kansas City to kick. I like Kansas City to beat them, but I don't know what this Detroit team is going to look like against other teams because I think Kansas City is going to be really good.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just see. This will be a team that I'll just hold off on, kind of like we did with Atlanta last year, and then Atlanta just started fucking covering left and right, and it's like, fuck it, ride it.
Yep.
Maybe we'll get lucky with Detroit one way or the other, and they'll just tank, and it'll just be loss, and we can rack some wins early. That'd be nice either way.
Yep.
The next team we're going to talk about, Jimmy, is the Minnesota Vikings, who won this division last year. They racked a whole bunch of wins. This year, their Super Bowl odds are plus 4,000 to win the conference. They're plus 2,000, plus 290 to win the division. To make the playoffs, no is minus 122. Yes, plus 115. Their over/under sits at 8.5, minus 110 on the over, plus 104 on the under. Jimmy, do the Minnesota Vikings regress? Do they win more or fewer than 8.5 games?
I think they get to 10 or 11 wins. So this is an easy over for me. I still think this team is very good. They have a good young offensive line. I'm curious to see what Alexander Madison's going to look like as the starter. Sometimes he's splashed, sometimes he's failed. I think he'll be okay. There's a lot of people that think Justin Jefferson is going to break receiving and catching records this year, but I don't think he will because of the contract they gave Hawkinson and the draft of Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is really, really good. He was a transfer a couple of years ago. He had an injury, but Jordan Addison is really good. I think by the end of the year, they'll be one of the better 1-2 punches in the league. They got Brian Flores as their DC now, so I think that makes talent better. Of course, they're going to come up short in every big game in playoffs because of Cousins, but I still think they're going to win a bunch of regular season games. They do have tough out-of-conference games with Chiefs, 49ers, Bengals, and Chargers, but I don't think that stops them from getting to 10 or 11.
I totally agree. Everything I said about Detroit previously, about going 3-1 in the NFC South and 2-2 in the AFC West, that feels like 5 wins, and you get to play Green Bay and Chicago. That feels like at least another 3. That's 8 wins right there. All they got to do is win one more. I think they do it. I don't understand why this team has fallen so far out of favor. I know they got embarrassed in that playoff game, but this is a team that won 13 games last year, and they haven't changed that much. And it's not like they're... It's not like their conference, it's not like their schedule got harder. They're still playing a lot of bad teams. And every once in a while, Justin Jefferson just goes fucking Super Saiyan and they just win games because Kirk Cousins might not be a great quarterback, but he's smart enough to know to throw it to Justin Jefferson because that guy's really fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't really understand it.
Their defense can't possibly be worse. We both like Brian Flores as a coach. We both think he should be a head coach, but he's definitely going to get the most out of that defense there is to get. Up next, we have the new look Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love taking over the reins for Aaron Rodgers. Their Super Bowl odds have taken a precipitous drop, Jimmy. They are plus 6,600 to win the Super Bowl, plus 3,500 to win the division, plus 400 to win the conference. No, minus 180. Yes, plus 165 to make the playoffs. 7.5 is their over-under season win total. Minus 125 on the over. Plus 130 for the under. Jimmy, do the Green Bay Packers win more or fewer than 7.5 games?
I think they win more. I think they're an 8 to 10 win team. It all comes down to what Jordan Love is. I really don't know, so I'm not going to put any of my own money on this team to start the season. But I do think, though, if he is competent, I think they can get to 8 to 10 wins. I still think they've got good skill players. I would like to see them put Jones and Dillon in the backfield at the same time and bring back the old school, like Madden, near and far West Coast offenses. But but I think they've got good players there. The defense is really talented, but they keep underperforming. They drafted like 5 new guys who made the 53, so there should be a little bit of extra like competition there for roles and spots. So I think that'll make the defense better. But it's just all going to come down to, did they actually get another great quarterback? That's what it comes down to.
My answer to that question is I don't think so.
Ooh.
They won 8 games last year, and not that Rodgers was bad. He wasn't as good as he normally is, but he wasn't bad. I don't know if Jordan Love can be that good. I'm with you, though. I'm not putting any money on this team. This is a wait-and-see team for me. I'm ready to pounce. If they look good, I'm ready to put money on them. If they look bad, I'm ready to bet against them. We'll just see what happens. I'm taking the under for our picks, but I think there are much better bets to be found than betting on the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Because it's just those out-of-conference games, they could feast or they could famine.
Yeah, that Chargers game looks big for their over-under, and that's a game that, eek. The Chargers are a really good football team. I also think there's something to, they struck gold with their 2 quarterbacks previous, and the idea that they're going to do that a third time just seems unlikely, which is another reason why I sort of err on the side of under. But I'm open to them proving me wrong on this. I'm not very strong in that. Don't have a lot of conviction in that under. So we'll see what they look like in week 1, week 2, and adjust accordingly. Another team I don't know kind of what the fuck to do with, Jimmy, are the Chicago Bears. They are plus 6,000 to win the Super Bowl, plus 3,000 to win the NFC, plus 450 to win the division. To make the playoffs, no, minus 180, yes, plus 175. Their over-under sits at 7.5, minus 122 on the over, plus 110 on the under. A lot of people talking about this team because they love Justin Fields, Jimmy. Do they win more or fewer than 7.5 games?
I think they're going to feast on those 2 other divisions. I think they're going to get to 8 to 10 and make the playoffs.
Wow.
I like this roster. I think Fields is going to continue to grow. He's got a real weapon in DJ Moore. I like Cole Kmet at tight end. I'm a Khalil Herbert truther. Lots of talent and youth to back up the talent on defense. They got a ton of guys who good teams couldn't re-sign, and they had a lot of money to sign those guys. I think they're going to be very good. I really do. I think they're going to be what the Lions were last year. I think this team's going to be very good.
Wow. I'm not sold on this team. I like a lot of what Justin Fields does, but he kind of reminded me last year of Russell Westbrook, where he brings a lot of things to the table, but he also takes some things off. But I don't know what else he was supposed to do because they didn't really have a whole lot around him there. I've never been a big DJ Moore fan. I think he's an okay player, but I don't think he moves the needle. I just don't think they're there yet. I don't think they have enough talent. I know they've got a weaker... I know we've talked about how weak their out-of-conference games are with the NFC South and AFC West. You got 6 winnable games in there. But I just think the growing pains continue for Justin Fields. I'm not sure if they have the right coach, but this is another team that I sort of feel like this because I feel like they're being anointed as if they're better than like they really are. But I'm willing to be flexible on that. This team did win 3 games last year. So getting to 8 and making a 5-game jump would be, that would be a big fucking deal.
Yeah, that for sure.
Final thoughts on the NFC North, Jimmy.
I think this could end up being one of the really good competitive divisions. But I fear for them. I think the Vikings and Bears are both going to make the playoffs, and then Kirk Cousins is going to do what Kirk Cousins does.
I like Minnesota at plus 290 to win the division. I think that's good value. And if you're one of these people like Jimmy that really like Chicago, then I would advise you to put some money on Chicago to win the division at plus 450, because if you're like Jimmy and you think that this team has enough talent to make hay against that schedule, then I think that plus 450 is a bet you have to make. Let's recap who we have winning the divisions, Jimmy. We'll just go through them all again. We'll start in the AFC and we'll just go through. In the AFC East, I had Buffalo winning the division. Who did you have, Jimmy? I thought you had the Bills too.
I also have the Bills.
In the AFC North, I have Cincinnati winning the division. Jimmy, who do you have?
I also have the Bengals in the North.
And I think we both have Jacksonville to win the South and Kansas City to win the West, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Philadelphia to win the NFC East.
Yep.
I have Minnesota in the NFC North. Who do you have, Jimmy?
I also have Minnesota there.
We finally disagree with the NFC South, I believe, because I have Atlanta, and I think you have New Orleans.
Yes, I have New Orleans there.
All right. And in the NFC West, we both have the Niners. So those are the teams we like to win their divisions. Who else do you have making the playoffs? Who are your 3 wild card teams in the AFC?
In the AFC, I have the Chargers at 5, the Ravens at 6, and the Dolphins at 7.
I have the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Browns.
Should be the Browns.
Yeah,
yep,
I have the Browns as
there.
the last playoff team.
Yep.
Wow. It's amazing. I haven't looked at this since we did them.
I'm still stunned you have them there too, bud.
And in the NFC, who do you have as the 3 wild cards?
And then in the NFC, I have the Cowboys at 5, the Bears at 6, and the Packers at 7.
Wow. I have Dallas, then Seattle, and who do I have as the last wild card team? Wow, there's a lot. Oh, the Lions. I have the Lions as the last playoff team. God damn, I can't believe those words came out of my mouth. I have the Browns and the Lions making the playoffs as the 7 seed, Jimmy. God help me.
Yes, you do, bud.
Maybe I'm feeling my oats after that Jacksonville Jaguars pick last year. Who knows?
So you want to actually run? Yeah, you want to run through these?
Well, I was going to say, who do you have in the conference championship? Who do you have in the AFC conference championship game? Who do you have as the final 2 there?
So I actually have. So my last 4, I actually have. I've got the Chiefs over the Ravens, the Jags over the Chargers,
Ooh.
and then I'm taking the Jags over the Chiefs in the AFC.
The Jags over the Chiefs. The Prince ascending to the throne.
I'm doing it. It's yeah. I just like it. I don't know, man. I'm feeling it. I like it.
I like Kansas City over Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. I think Buffalo finds themselves on the opposite side of the bracket, so Kansas City and Cincinnati play each other. They get a little easier path. I think Kansas City's just good. Patrick Mahomes was better than everybody last year with 1 leg. That defense has had a year to gel. I just think they're still the class of the AFC. You still have Andy Reid. Chris Jones is going to come back at some point, and when he does, they're going to be really good. They're going to learn how to play without him, which might even be scarier for teams. They're just still the best. And what do you have happening in the NFC side of the bracket?
So the last 4 in the NFC, I have the Eagles over the Bears,
wow,
and the 49ers over the Cowboys. Because I think the way the bracket's going to play out, I think the Bears are going to catch the Vikings in the first round, and I'm going to take the Bears over the Vikings because it's a playoff game. So, but yeah, I think you're going to get your Eagles 49ers NFC Championship game as it should be because they're by far the 2 best teams in the NFC. And then I think the Eagles are going to beat the 49ers and go on to win the Super Bowl.
I will concur with that assessment. I think the Eagles are going to beat the San Francisco 49ers. I think they're going to play the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I lean Philadelphia because they were so close to winning that game last year. I don't know, though. It feels like a 50-50 game between Kansas City and Philadelphia. Both of those teams are just so good. I'm ready to I like the Eagles right now because their odds are so much better. I think there's going to be value with the Kansas City Chiefs when they lose one of these games at some point during the regular season to Cincinnati or Buffalo, or they also play Philadelphia too, I believe. So when they lose those games, they may lose 2 of those games, and you'll see the odds for Kansas City come down maybe plus 800. Whew, if you can get that at plus 1,000, baby, that is a bet to make. But I think we concur with who the best teams in this league are. And if it's not those two teams, if you were going to make a small list, who has a real shot of winning the Super Bowl in your opinion?
So I don't think like in the NFC, and I mean, I know anything could happen. Maybe I'm totally wrong on the Lions and they're going to make a run. I really feel like in the NFC, the Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys are just the only three teams that could really make a run. Now,
yeah, and I don't even have a lot of faith in Dallas being able to do that.
No.
But if you're going to pick a third team in the NFC, I think that's the third team.
Now, but I do like on the AFC side, if the Chiefs, Jags, Bills, Bengals, Chargers, or Ravens won the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be surprised by any of it. Something funky would probably have to happen for it to not be the Chiefs, Bills, or Bengals, but it wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't. I just think those teams, like if you took the AFC, NFC out of it, the Eagles and 49ers are going to fall somewhere in there in that second to fourth best team. But I think the 6 of the 8 best teams in the NFL all come from the AFC. And I think any of those teams could legitimately win the Super Bowl.
I like your Jacksonville pick. At plus 3,000, those are great odds. That was the year.
Yeah.
It was year 2 that Doug Peterson took over and took Philadelphia to the Super Bowl. They have a lot of positivity going for them. And with their schedule, the number 1 overall seed is definitely out there for them to get if they can take it. And if this winds up being the 1 seed, they could definitely end up following the path that Philadelphia did last year. And maybe you catch a break or two against one of these really, really good AFC teams. Maybe Baltimore has an injury or two. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is really good, but that defense isn't as good for Kansas City, and you find a way to win a slugfest, or you find a way to outscore them. Or maybe you get lucky with overtime luck or something. But
yeah, no, I totally agree. I completely agree. I think those are going to be slugfest kind of games. But I think you're going to get to the playoffs and you're going to have some really excellent football.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to get to. Well, Jimmy, that wraps up our previews. We did our first pick of the season, and we'll have some NFL games to pick later. Thank you for joining me tonight.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I want to thank all of you for listening. There are links to all of our previous podcasts in the description below, so check all of those out if you have not yet. Please drop us a like or a subscribe as well. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.